Welcome to episode 68 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Elaan of Troyius.
In this week's episode, the Enterprise must help to broker peace between the people of two planets in the same solar system, taking on board a promised bride and an ambassador to teach her the customs of her new world. Conflict constantly breaks out, but when the Klingons show up and the ship is sabotaged, it could mean disaster. With their lives on the line, can Kirk put distractions aside and lead his crew to victory? Or will the Klingons prevail and gain control of a valuable asset?
Mr. Spock, the women on your planet are logical. That's the only planet in this galaxy that can make that claim.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry.
How logical are the women on your planet?
Just as logical as the men.
Oh,
I thought I would...
modern.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you've used that as the opening clip. It's just me ranting about it later on in the episode.
Yeah. There are a few problematic behaviours, issues I have in this episode.
Yeah, that's the exact note I've got. It's a good episode with some problematic aspects.
There you go. What's been happening?
Well, it's been getting warmer for some reason.
I don't know why, yeah. It's very sticky.
Unpleasant.
Bring on the snow.
That's what I say.
We'll miss it when it's gone.
No, we won't. Oh, I won't. Anyway, always good to see the Klingons.
Can't beat a bit of Klingon. I always say that. Always have.
Yes, it's traditional.
It's what I'm known for.
You enjoyed the episode, though?
I did, yes. Another episode in season 3 that wasn't terrible.
Yet again, it feels like a broken record now when we say that every week.
But we have to. It's what I'm known for.
It's what you're known for, liking season 3 and calling people nerds.
Geeks.
Shall we get on with this?
Let's crack on.
As has become customary, we open with a captain's log.
4372.5. Tell me about it.
It is exposition heavy. We're on a top secret diplomatic mission. We've entered the Telin star system and, with a communications blackout, have taken aboard Petrie, an ambassador from Troyius. And we're now heading to the other populated world in the system, Elas.
There seems to be a lot of stuff that doesn't really get brought back up again. This is a top secret diplomatic mission, and you're thinking, okay, there must be some...
Yeah, well, the thing that didn't make sense to me is why didn't they tell Kirk what the mission was? There's no reason for him not to know.
There's many reasons for him to know.
Exactly.
He comes to discover.
Yes, and the ambassador doesn't keep it secret very long anyway.
We start in the turbo lift.
Yes.
Kirk moans to McCoy, Spock and Scotty that a Starfleet pen pusher is behind the cloak and dagger affair they're on. And Spock explains to Scotty that the star system is in an area disputed with the Klingons.
Scotty's unimpressed by this. He doesn't like the area very much and doesn't see the point of fighting for it. But
Kirk lets him know that that's their orders. They've got to comply with all matters relating to Petrie and his mission. So who is Petrie?
He's the ambassador from Troyius. I mentioned him earlier on.
Did you? By name?
Yes.
Okay.
He is, yes, he's to be cooperated with, but no reasons given. This is just silly.
It's just trying to create some sort of mystery out of nothing.
We get Uhura chipping in now on comms saying that the Elatians are ready, but they're upset at being delayed.
Yeah, my autocorrects come up here. Apparently the Asians are ready.
All right, that's interesting. Kirk doesn't realise that there's been any delay. I think this is one of these things you're meant to get the impression that they are unreasonable.
Yeah, he's confused about this, but tells her to beam them aboard as Spock remarks that their gripes are typical of the race, whose men are meant to be vicious and arrogant. A little bit of generalisation here.
Spock's done this before. He did it with the Tholians, remember? Said they were good for their punctuality.
Yeah, but he must be used to it. I mean, the Vulcans are always broad-brushed.
Yeah, maybe he feels like if they're going to treat me that way, I'll just treat everybody else that way.
However, McCoy, he looks on the positives.
Yeah, there's women.
And they are meant to have a power that drives men wild. Yeah, like being alive in his case, I think.
Pretty much.
As long as it's not Scotty.
Eye contact and pulse, the two things that he goes for. In the corridor, we meet this ambassador who's orange-haired.
Well, I've written down that he looks like a cross between the Wicked Witch of the West and Donald Trump. He had that hair.
And that look.
Snivelling little.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
He is a bit of a sniveller.
Yeah.
Kirk asks him for an explanation, but is told to wait until the dolman is aboard.
What's a dolman?
Well, we're going to find out.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense either.
I didn't like the name. It
No.
didn't suit.
Petrie explains as they go into the transporter room that the dolman is the thing most feared and hated by his people.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, 3 men beam aboard and Petrie and Kirk introduce themselves, which makes the men a bit edgy.
Yeah, they draw their weapons, and after noting the presence of a Troyan, insist that they must ensure the place is secure. But Kirk just says, yeah, I'm the captain. It's all secure.
They could have shot that guy out there. Nobody was stopping them.
And so they kneel out of respect before the dolman arrives.
Yes, turns out to be a woman.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see Kirk and the others, they look on with this sort of sneering contempt as the security kneel down.
Petrie kneels as well.
And Petrie kneels. But they change their attitude when...
Oh yeah, she's quite pretty. That's
yes,
Neil.
oh, okay, that's fine, yeah. I mean, that is fine.
Yeah, there's no reason for it.
She's got a Cleopatra.
Yes, very much so, yes.
Only in a skimpy costume.
Oh, she's got a lot of skimpy costumes.
Credits, I think, next.
Yes, and then we are back in the transporter room where the head guard allows everybody to stand as Kirk mutters to Spock about body armour and nuclear weapons.
Casually. There's a nuclear weapon there. But they're told by her security that permission was not granted for them to speak.
Yes, Spock is shut up in the middle of telling Kirk that he shouldn't judge because his own planet followed a similar path.
Petrie, he starts to introduce himself to the dolman, but she dismisses him, claiming to know his mission, and tells Kirk he has permission to show them to their quarters, which I think amuses him.
Yeah, I think these folk coming in issuing orders is not really what he's used to, or something he's willing to go along with.
But Petrie, he sort of gently, you can see through eye contact, and there's a gentle pleading with him not to argue. So he backs down and tells her that Spock will show the way. However, he does want a word with Petrie out in the corridor after getting permission to be dismissed.
Ambassador, I think it's time you told me what's going on.
That creature, Elaan, is to be the wife of our ruler, to bring peace. Our 2 warring planets now possess the capability of mutual destruction. Some method of coexistence must be found.
I see. So we go back to Troyius.
Yes. But slowly, Captain. I will need time. Before we reach there, she must be taught civilized manners. In her present condition, my people would never accept her.
And you are to be her teacher?
Those are my orders. I must ask you and your crew to respect, or at least tolerate their arrogance. Friction must be kept at a minimum.
Yes, that I can understand.
Another thing you should understand, Captain. You have as much at stake as I have. Your superiors have made the statement that failure of this mission would be as catastrophic for Federation planning as it would be for our 2 planets. To gain peace at the price of accepting such a queen is no victory. I will take her the official gifts I bear. Perhaps that will soften her mood.
I'm not really sure that I follow the logic here.
Okay.
It's just because 2 members of these different races or planets decide to marry. It's like saying, okay, if an American marries an Afghani, then suddenly the countries wouldn't fight with each other.
It's not like that at all. It's more like medieval Europe where you'd have the head of one family marry the head of another family so they would no longer be at war.
Okay, fair enough.
It worked for the medieval Europeans. They had no wars.
No, never. On the bridge, Chekhov is told to head to Troyius and Sulu to set a speed of 0.37 sublight.
Yeah, partial impulse power.
Yeah, this seems to insult or at least confuse Scotty, who doesn't understand why his warp drives aren't being used, and remarks that it will take a great deal of time to get there.
He's almost crying when he approaches Kirk. You don't need my warp drive.
Yeah. I like the way Kirk basically just tells him to do what he's told. It's like, are you in a hurry? What else have you got to do?
None of your business. Stop interfering.
So he accepts that. Spock arrives with news that the Dolman, are we going to call her the Dolman from now on? I mean,
Let's call her Elaan.
I don't think it's until later a lot later in the episode until she's called this. In fact, I don't think she's ever introduced. I think Kirk just starts calling her this.
Well, it's the name of the episode.
Anyway, the Dolman, she's not happy with her quarters, and
this upsets Uhura.
Yeah, because Uhura gave up. It's Uhura's quarters.
Yes. She's furious. They're not good enough. Yeah,
but I can sort of understand. I take the side of Elaan here, because Uhura, we've seen before, she's got very sort of girly 60s, it's all very, this is a female, feminine place.
And that's exactly what we see Elaan saying when Kirk heads down to her quarters. First of all, though, we see her throwing the gifts back to Ambassador Petrie, calling him a swine, and accusing his ruler of trying to buy her favour.
Kirk enters, followed by a guard called Crichton. I wonder, is that
from Red Dwarf?
Red Dwarf, is that where they got his name from, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know which way around it was.
What do you think? Yeah, okay.
Time travel and all that.
Yeah, he tells Elaan that Kirk has come to resolve her problem. She's not happy with why Kirk's there in the first place.
Yes, he's answered her summons regarding the quarters, and she throws something in the general direction as she complains about how soft and feminine the place is.
Yeah, she doesn't care that Uhura vacated her room for her and finds it unsatisfactory, but less so than Petrie, who she describes as a ridiculous ambassador. She reminds me a little bit of Mrs. Richards from Fawlty Towers?
Yes. She wants something to complain about.
She wants to see the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, or
yes, an ocean view of some kind. Yes,
from the
Torquay town centre. No. Yes, she calls Petrie ridiculous, and he says that he's tried to explain the situation, but is removed by Crichton on Elaan's orders as he grabs up his gifts.
Left alone with Kirk, she continues to rage, much to his amusement, and she claims to never forgive the council for putting her through this torture. She's quite the diva. Hardly a torture.
Yeah.
Although I suppose being married off could be considered
an arranged marriage that you're not invested in or agreed with, but then it comes with the job, I think.
Sure, yeah, it's a bit like, I suppose, again, the royal family today, that you can only marry certain, well, Harry, I suppose, has broken that rule, but until then, you're expected to marry certain types. Keep it all in the family. Very tight-knit.
Very literally. Kirk says there are no better quarters anyway, so she's not getting to move, and he offers to fill the room with breakables if that's what she wants.
Quite like that. I'm fairly impressed with how Kirk is handling this up to a certain point, obviously when things change with his control, but he's not getting too harassed, and he's just sort of smiling and letting her.
I think he doesn't view the mission as too serious.
But he should. He's told that this could result in...
Yeah, I don't think he believes it.
Okay.
Or at least I don't think he sees there being any difficulties in him fulfilling his part of the mission.
The unbearable guest continues her tantrum when Kirk tells her to be better behaved and exits without waiting for her permission.
Yes, and out in the corridor he runs into Petrie, who's been waiting there for a few minutes.
He's very harassed.
Yes, he wants to abort his mission completely. He's decided that Elaan is untamable, but Kirk says this is a mission of peace.
I think he says it'd be an insult to bring this monster to his rulers.
It's a bit of an overreaction, is it not?
Well, she's acting fairly horribly.
Yeah, well, that's just right now.
Kirk tries to talk him back, but Petrie admits that when he's with them, he just wants to kill them.
Maybe that's him that's got the problem then.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Which is what Kirk says. Tells me he's as bad as her.
Yeah, he takes a different approach next.
Yes, he tells Petrie he's not required to like Elaan, he just has to do his job. And step one is to stop trying to kill one another.
And also to take a firmer approach with her, which she might respect. Although it's never going to happen with Petrie.
No, he's not really the kind of man who demands respect, is he?
Up in the bridge, Spock informs him that he has detected a ghost reading that he can't account for, but assures him that all the instrumentation is working correctly.
Yeah, he's not willing to speculate, but when Kirk suggests it could be a spaceship, he raises an eyebrow. Kind of in accord, I think. It's like, there's not enough data for me to say it's a ship, but yeah, you could be right.
Scotty interrupts to complain about their guests messing around with his equipment, and So Kirk goes down to help in engineering. Why are the guests down there in the first place? They really shouldn't.
Got free reign in the ship.
But they shouldn't. I know they have, but here's the thing. You're transporting them. If you today buy the most expensive ticket for the most luxurious liner, for example,
you don't get full access
you can't
to everything.
say, well, I'm a special guest, I can get down to that. No, you're restricted. You can't get in the cockpit in a plane or get down into the luggage, just because you've...
That's true.
So I'm telling her, no, these are out of bounds. It's dangerous. It's for your own
Staff only.
health and safety.
Gone mad.
We begin with Scotty patronising Elaan by referring to her as a lassie when discussing the impulse engines.
Yes, but she's not interested. She wants to know more about the weaponry, saying the engines are for mechanics and menials, which is a good way to shut Scotty down.
Certainly. She also mentions she wants to know how they are used in combat.
He's about to say something, but Kirk arrives just in time to cut him off.
Yeah, she is perplexed that they don't have free reign of the ship, but obviously they do.
Yeah, but she says that we've said you don't have to kneel. I mean, what else do you want?
Come on, be reasonable.
Kirk reminds her that courtesy goes a long way, but she's not inclined to offer it to those she sees as inferior.
However, they smile and she simply stalks off, and then Spock communicates through with news.
Yes, there's a ghost approaching.
The sensor ghost is getting closer. So up on the bridge, Kirk arrives and Spock tells him that they were able to establish for a moment that it was a spaceship, but they don't know yet what type.
They do soon because it shows up again and they can see it's clearly a Klingon vessel.
Yeah, they use extreme magnification. I like a bit of extreme magnification.
It's always good. Spock tries a one-liner, saying that our ghost has materialised. Nobody laughs.
Kirk, however, is distracted again by a message from security, reporting a further disturbance.
He must be exhausted. He's been up and down those stairs for 30 times already. He has to go.
Again, yeah, a bit like Basil.
Yes, constant. He's away down to Elaan's quarters again to see what the problem is this time.
Yeah, this time it's not quite as simple as throwing things around. What does he find?
Yeah, something's happened with Petrie, but the Elasians won't tell the security officer who's there what's
What, has he been slapped? Has he been punched?
We don't know. Crichton tries to stop Kirk entering, noting that her glory has not called for him, but at this point she emerges, telling Crichton to remove the Trojan pig.
Again, slapped, punched, is he?
He's lying face down on the floor with a knife in his back.
Ah, okay. A little bit more severe. I assumed he was dead.
Yeah, I assumed he was dead, but we only get that assumption for about 3 seconds because the network can't allow it to go on for too long.
No, we go to sickbay where we find out he's not in fact dead. He will live even though it was a deep wound and he has lost a lot of blood according to McCoy.
Indeed.
Petrie, we find, is actually awake and is not in the best of moods with Kirk.
If I recover, it will be no thanks to you, Captain.
That's what I said. Talk with her, not fight with her.
I should have known better than to talk to her unarmed. But you forced me. I hold you responsible for this.
Well, I've heard of reluctant brides, but this is ridiculous.
Captain Kirk, may I speak with you, sir?
Yes, sir.
A message just came in from Starfleet Command. It was Class A security and scrambled. I put it through the decoder.
What was it?
The Federation High Commissioner is on his way to Troyius to attend the royal wedding.
Ambassador, if Elasian women are that vicious, why are men so overwhelmingly attracted to them? I mean, what magic do they possess?
It's not magic. It's biochemical. A man whose flesh is once touched by the tears of a woman of Elas has his heart enslaved forever.
Ambassador, there's an added complication. Federation High Commissioner will be attending the wedding.
Oh, the fat will be in the fire when he learns the bride just tried to murder the groom's ambassador.
There will be no wedding. I would not have our ruler marry that monster if the entire galaxy depended on it. And I will have nothing further to do with you.
Well, I'm not asking you to have anything to do with me. Just do your job with her. How long will it be before he's on his feet?
Be a few days, a week at least, John.
Here you put me, Captain. Here I will stay. I have nothing further to say to you.
So we head back to the Dolman's quarters where we find her tearing apart and eating some type of animal like it's a scene from a Robin Hood movie, as she laments that Petrie has survived.
Yes, Kirk's trying to talk to her about her impetuousness, but she says it's totally legitimate to stab a Troyan because he was in her quarters.
Yeah, without permission. It's a bit like in maybe in Texas. If you enter someone's land, you're allowed to shoot them in the face.
Florida,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
He's coming right for me.
Although I think she says being Troyan was enough cause anyway.
Yeah. Kirk gives her a talking to, explaining that his orders are to take her to be married and ensure that she learns Troyan customs.
But she reminds him that she despises them and contact with them makes her feel soiled.
Kirk explains that these sorts of prejudices tend to fall away once people get to know one another, but she does not agree.
No, and continues to eat like a savage. In any case, he reminds her that the problem still remains of her learning the customs, and when she asks how it can be resolved, he wearily responds that he will be her new teacher.
She doesn't think he can teach her anything.
I think she laughs at this.
But he starts with table manners, which annoys her.
She looks at him for a beat, yeah, and then demands she is returned immediately to Elas, but Kirk tells her that is impossible.
She snaps back at him, expecting whatever she wants to be done should be done, but he says this is the first problem they're going to work on, and then he'll prepare her for Troyius.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be humiliated and not to be given to a green pig as a bribe to stop a war, which I think is a fair point.
Yeah, that's a good argument.
She swigs from the bottle, which he grabs from her.
Yes, he fires back, challenging her to live up to the privilege and status of being a dolman, telling her that there are obligations that come with the role, and if she doesn't want them, she should step aside. Which is fair enough, she does have a choice. She's not being forced to do this. If she doesn't want to be dolman, she doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes the rest of it a bit less problematic.
Sure. She goes on to tell him that nobody speaks to her like that, and he responds that that's another one of her problems. No one has ever told her that she is an uncivilized savage, a vicious child in a woman's body and an arrogant monster.
Yes, she thumps him and he has no hesitation thumping her right back.
Yeah, okay. Not great.
No. People would say that's equality, but...
They would. I mean, she, in fairness, she struck first.
But still, there was no need for him to strike her. He just did it because he wanted to.
Yeah.
Anyway, as he leaves, he tells her that's no way to treat somebody who's telling the truth. Yeah,
now at this point, I think a slap is fine. She launches a knife at him. Now, was that just a miss or was that a warning?
I think it's a warning. She's not trying to hit him.
But still, if someone throws a knife at me when my back's turned, I'm inclined to give him a jab.
Yeah, but it's too late. He's already done it. He's away.
Yeah.
He tells her tomorrow's lesson is courtesy.
She then, I think it was a spit, it was some sort of animalistic response.
Kind of hisses at him, yeah.
Yeah, which she does after he is left. Up in the bridge, the Klingons still have to be dealt with, and he tells Uhura to ask them what their intentions are.
Meanwhile, we see Crichton down in engineering, sneaking about, messing around with things.
Back in the bridge, Uhura gets no response from the Klingons, and so he puts the ship on yellow alert, and we head back down to Crichton.
Yes, a red shirt finds him and asks what he's up to.
Crichton murders him.
Yeah, with no remorse at all.
Before returning to his task, whatever he's up to. And we head back to Elan's quarters.
Yes, or the corridor just outside, where Kirk asks what's happened to Crichton.
Yeah, is this the point? I think he's prevented from entering by her security.
Yes, he's told that Crichton's away on business, which should raise some questions, I would have thought. And the other guards have been told that if Kirk is allowed to enter, they will be whipped to death.
Yeah, he's quite a big chap. I wouldn't mess with him.
No.
But little Kirk tries to muscle his way past.
At which point they push Kirk away.
Yeah, he's tossed aside.
And Spock steps out the shadows to phaser them.
That's pretty cool.
So I think Kirk set that up.
Yeah, Spock tells Kirk his analysis of the situation was flawless. Apparently he knew he would be denied admittance. Although Spock can't see how he arrived at that conclusion.
We heard at the top of the show the bit about the women not being logical, which we can skim over now.
Yeah, I mean, we say skim over. It was a fantastic piece of 60s sexism.
Yes, I mean, classic.
Yeah, I don't think back then it would have been that outrageous.
No, I think there was a general perception that when men and women thought differently.
Mm-hmm. Back in her quarters, he bursts in on her and forces her to the bed. It's a little bit...
not in a rapey way.
This time. Asking her if she is going to behave, even though she tells him that the penalty is death for what he is doing.
Yeah, so she quickly sets down the rules, don't touch me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'll do what I want. Which is a little bit problematic again.
It is, and what he's saying is, or what he does say is that it's his starship. The rules, it's his rules.
Yes, if he wants to spank her, he will.
Yeah, okay, we'll get there. She bites him first of all, which is not great.
No.
And then she hides in the toilet. And at this point, yes, he threatens to give her a spanking. Now, in this context, it's unacceptable because it's the violence. But the next time we discuss it, it's not. There's a subtext, other connotations, I think.
Yeah, he's sticking with his, child metaphor. So
yeah.
She's going to act like a child, he'll treat her like a child.
Again, we've mentioned this on numerous occasions, but it's a sort of James Bond, isn't it?
Very much.
Where you grab a woman, you kiss her, you give her a backhander if she deserves
she enjoys it.
That type of thing, yeah.
As long as she enjoys it at some point, everything else is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he explains to her that if he has to leave and she won't talk to him, he'll send Spock and he'll send McCoy and somebody will teach her as has been ordered.
Now this changes her mind. She comes out claiming that he can teach her one thing: how to make people like her. Oh, she's changed her tune now.
Has she though?
She drops her guard and with a sadness in her voice admits that she doesn't want everyone to hate her.
I think it's been quite clear up to now that she doesn't care who hates her.
That's the thing, there's no indication that this is all a shield, this is all
No, this is her pretending to be upset so that Kirk touches her tears.
Is it?
Yes.
But yeah, well, maybe, but towards the end, there's no indication that this was just a ruse. She doesn't change back at any point and say, haha, I got you there.
No, because she quite likes Kirk in the way that he's talking to her.
Okay.
So she's tricking him into touching her tears so that he'll fall for her.
Yeah, okay. In any case, Kirk tells her that it's not that people hate her, just that they want to be treated like they exist. Before he wipes a tear from her face with his hand.
And immediately feels something biochemical, as McCoy would put it.
Yeah, he gets all hot and bothered and tries to excuse himself, but doesn't manage to before she wills him into a kiss. Now, this is a big scene. In my view, not enough is made of this kiss. This, for me, so there's two things here. This, for me, is the first interracial kiss. I think there is it's almost like a disregard of it. If it's not black and white races, then we don't care. This is an interracial kiss, and this is a proper kiss. Although, fair enough, he might be forced, but it is a proper passionate kiss, and they actually do it. And it's so. This is the first. This is what we should be talking about, not a hurrah, maybe touching lips. And
this was filmed first.
Was it? Well, there you go. So
you can tell by Scotty's haircut.
Ah, right. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
So this is the proper first interracial kiss.
You're happy with
Star
this
Trek. I'm happier. I mean, he was forced. It wasn't again.
Yeah, she has drugged him. It's very Bill Cosby.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. It's I'm sure there was tears involved in that as well.
She's asked him to explain more about the spanking thing.
Well, yeah, it gets very naughty here, doesn't it? A glint in her eye. She asked about this Earth custom of spanking. I've got what the WTF at this point, and he tells her that they will talk about it later before moving in for another passionate kiss. I mean, I'm assuming they knew what they were saying here.
Yeah, I think maybe tried to slip it past the censors a wee bit.
Yeah, maybe back then they didn't really get the innuendo or the suggestion.
Down in engineering, we see Crichton finish whatever he was doing and open his communicator.
Before we head to the bridge where Uhura tells Kirk that she has picked up an internal communication to the Klingon ship.
Spock's seen it as well, and Kirk answers from Elaan's quarters asking for the location.
Yeah, he's, I think this is the second episode in a row, he's a bit dishevelled and unfocused.
We don't know if there's been a time jump or not.
But she is lying, I guess, like a James Bond scene where they do the business and then James Bond gets a call from M, and while he's on the phone, she's like distracting him, saying, "Oh, James, come back to bed." Yeah, all that type of thing. I've got here, it's a post-coital cuddle.
It could be.
I think it is. Look at his hair. They've certainly been doing a bit of rolling around.
Yeah, but it could be all clothed. Anyway, Kirk alerts security and makes his excuses, leaving the room with Elaan left sitting on the bed, looking quite pleased with herself.
Down in engineering, they've got Crichton, as Scotty explains that the red shirt was killed.
Yes, McCoy confirms that, and Kirk notes that the transmitter Crichton was holding was a Klingon device.
Yeah, I think Kirk identifies this. McCoy confirms that the red shirt had his neck snapped, and Kirk then asks Crichton about the signal he sent to the ship. He resolutely refuses to tell him anything, and notes that their interrogation techniques are beyond anything Kirk could come up with.
Yep, so Kirk calls down Spock to do a mind meld, but Crichton disarms a useless guard.
That's the exact word I've got here, yes. Useless.
Kills himself with the phaser, and the guard starts crying and apologising.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you just took... What? Shit.
I didn't realise he would try to take my gun.
These guys, I hope he's sacked for this.
Or shot in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be justice. Let's take him to the next mission.
Yeah, just jettison him out there. It's appalling.
Maybe they could do one of those things where they leave him on an alien planet to learn the culture.
Yeah.
It's happened a few times. Anyway, Kirk is curious about what Crichton was covering up and orders Scotty to check absolutely everything in engineering. And Scotty, not knowing what Crichton was doing, says, "Oh, but that'll take ages."
He's such a... Yeah, just do what you're told. I mean, what else you got? Like, that's your job. Just do what you're told.
I've got a bottle of whiskey waiting on me in my room. You're going to make me check all the systems.
Scotty really...
Can I not just do the main one?
Needs to shake himself. We're back to her quarters. She's been given the news, and she proceeds to give some background on Crichton.
Yeah, it's a bit more sort of humanising now. We hear more about her and her backstory and Crichton's backstory.
I mean, what was that?
Oh, Crichton, it's a bit similar to Wink of an Eye.
Right.
Crichton liked her, wanted to marry her, and was furious that she had to go with somebody else.
Kirk can't quite believe that Crichton was willing to give them up to the Klingons out of jealousy. However, she quickly forgets about him and turns her attention back to Kirk.
But why speak of unimportant matters when we can speak about us?
There's a Klingon warship out there. What's their involvement? Surely all of this isn't because they want to stop a marriage.
We should welcome their help.
Elaan. 2 planets. An entire star system's stability depends on it. We have a duty to forget what happened.
Could you do that? Could you give me to another man?
My orders and yours say that you belong to another man. What happened? What happened was an accident.
Was no accident. I chose you. You chose me. I have a plan. With this ship, you could completely obliterate Troyius. Then, there would be no need for the marriage. And in gratitude, my people would give you the complete rule of this system.
What kind of a mind could think of such a thing?
He's a Troyan.
Does she mean Kirk gets the rule of the system or the Federation?
Kirk himself. I think she's offering that.
I'm not sure the Federation's going to go for that.
No.
Hang on, I've become a despot ruler.
I don't think she's an authority to... Yeah, okay. Embarrassingly there, we heard at the end, he's caught in the act by McCoy and Spock, who arrive and have to ask him firmly a number of times to leave.
They're basically staging an intervention here.
They are.
And they pull him away. I didn't like the bit where he talked about belonging to a man. That's not quite the way it was presented earlier.
She's an object.
It's meant to be a union between the 2 planets, not a possession of one's woman by the other.
Oh, there you go.
I'm against it now.
Outside in the corridor, he is in a bit of a daze. He reminded me here of Mikey from the Goonies. After he kisses Andy she kisses him by mistake, and then he gets turned around and walks back out, and he's all a sort of stupor.
Yes, his head spinning.
Yeah.
Spock asks Kirk if he's all right, and McCoy asks whether Elaan cried before getting the answer himself.
And realise that they're in trouble as he has been touched by her tears and the super duper love potion that doesn't wear off.
Yes, he explains to Kirk what it means, And Kirk confirms to Spock that it's true and urges McCoy to find an antidote.
It's always great, anything that happens, it's always like, McCoy, you've got 24 hours, find an antidote. There's no such antidote. You can just find an antidote. You always do.
Come on, yeah.
How hard can it be?
Exactly. Sulu comes on comms and reports that the Klingons are coming right for them.
So he sounds the alarm and calls battle stations, but he seems less than his usual confident self. I think he's still a bit
affected, isn't he?
Up in the bridge, phasers are put on standby, and Spock tells Kirk the Klingons are travelling faster than Warp 6.
Yes, Kirk orders Chekhov to plot a course out of the system if required, or in case it's going to be required, and orders a head warp 2 just as Scotty comes on comms, warning him not to.
Why not?
Because there's a bomb and they'll blow up as soon as they go into warp.
Yeah, the antimatter pods have been rigged. It's a bit of speed here, a bit reverse speed.
Yes. Yeah, we can't go over this speed or else we will explode. Kirk asks if it can be disabled and Scotty says no. He always says no.
He's getting on my tits a little bit, Scotty.
Yeah. Anyhow, Kirk asks for all the power they can get at impulse and then tells Sulu to drive smart because the ship's going to be quite sluggish.
Yeah, I mean...
This doesn't make sense.
No, but they're effectively trapped here now, aren't they? They can't go anywhere and they don't have any...
But the implication here is that they do short-range manoeuvring at warp. You can't do short-range manoeuvring at warp speed.
Why not?
Well, that's not been established yet, I suppose.
It's did you ever watch Street Hawk?
No. Believe it or not.
Okay, it's like Airwolf or Knight Rider except with a motorbike.
Right.
And what they used to do is they would obviously goes at tremendous speeds, but you can do in a car. A bike, it's not the physics of it.
Right.
So all it would do is they would travel at a normal sort of speed, and then speed up the film.
Right.
But you watch them going round corners, and it's like that can never happen. You can't.
You
can't turn a 90-degree corner at 300 miles an hour. It won't work.
Just go flying off.
Doesn't matter how fast your bike is. Anyway,
for some reason now, though, Elaan enters the bridge, and Sulu counts them down from 100-kilometre range, but holds fire, or Kirk holds fire as the ships pass close by one another.
Yeah, without attacking.
Spock thinks that the Klingons maybe did not intend to attack, but notes they were fortunate. I don't understand if they didn't intend to attack them. How are they fortunate?
Well, they're fortunate they didn't intend to attack. That's a bit of fortune. Normally they would be.
Kirk notes though that obviously their strategy was to get the Enterprise to blow itself up by going to warp. They must have known that the device was in place, given Crichton's Klingon technology.
Yeah, I think what he says is effectively it's like they're saying they want the Enterprise to kill itself, therefore they would have been in no way implicated in this. But that's not how it would work. Surely
he'd figure it out, wouldn't he?
You also have to assume as well that Kirk would send a message or some sort of log saying, the last log of this of the Enterprise to the Federation.
Yeah. Yeah, but Spock's wrong to say they're fortunate. What happened was that the Enterprise figured out their plan and thwarted it.
True.
By not going to warp.
He is more interested in why they value this particular position of the star system, which Kirk agrees is a good question.
Yes, Spock also has a second question. Why is Elaan on our bridge?
Good question.
Kirk initially, his instinct is to cut Spock off before realising that he's quite right.
Yes, he snaps back saying he will be the judge, but stops when he realises what he's saying and to who, and tells, says he's right and thanks him.
Yes, and then orders Elaan to sickbay, where she'll be well protected. She says that she wants to stay by his side, but he says that her presence is interfering with his efficiency and with his ability to protect her.
That's what I say to my wife all the time when she wants to hang about me whenever I'm doing something.
Your presence is affecting my efficiency.
Yes. Go out in the kitchen, please. Let me watch TJ Hooker in peace. At that point, I get a knife and a dagger thrown at my back.
Yeah, it hits the wall.
No.
Kirk leaves with Elaan, leaving Spock in charge of the bridge, and in the turbolift, she tells Kirk that she loves him and has chosen him and doesn't understand why he wouldn't fight the Klingons. That's a bit of a non sequitur, that last point.
Yeah, because you love him doesn't, yeah.
Irrelevant.
It's also this macho thing. Be a real man, fight the Klingons. But he admits he would rather run away and live to fight another day.
Because he has to fulfill his mission, which he confirms is still to take her to Troyius.
She then plays on his emotions and asks if he would be okay seeing her wed to another man and to never see her again.
He says he's not going to be happy about it, but that's what's going to have to
I quite
happen.
like that, yes. Yeah, so be it.
Scotty comes on comms to report that the entire dilithium crystal converter assembly is fused. It's always something fused. That means that there's no chance of repair.
Yeah, and without these crystals, they can't even fire their own weapons. So Kirk tells Elaan that he's got to go back to the bridge, and she agrees to go to sickbay. I assumed that she wouldn't go to sickbay, but she in fact does.
Yeah, that was a bit odd. In sickbay, or in the lab anyway, Chapel and McCoy are testing out antidotes, but Petrie insists none exists and he's wasting time.
Yeah, I think McCoy gets a bit of a fright. Petrie creeps up, because I think he was still in his bed.
Right, he snuck through.
Yeah, and he has an odd little... You would get a fright if that green Donald Trump appeared behind you.
Yeah, McCoy snaps back at him, saying it's his time to waste.
Elaan then enters and explains she's there for her safety, but Petrie, he gently mocks her by asking McCoy what he thinks the chances of survival are.
McCoy says that's up to the captain, basically.
Up on the bridge.
Yeah, so Uhura reports that the Klingons have made contact.
Yeah, they're going to board the Enterprise immediately or they'll be destroyed.
Spock says they want an immediate reply, but Kirk reckons they're trying to force a fight.
And Scotty also tells them that they've got 93% impulse power.
Yeah, they won't be very manoeuvrable, and the shields will only hold for a few passes. Ultimately, they're going to lose.
Yeah, he doesn't think they've got any chance against them, and advises Kirk that he calls Starfleet.
Yes, he says he can't because this would alert the Klingons to their weaknesses. Surely they anticipate the Klingons already know, given that it was one of their agents that created the weaknesses.
And in any case, Spock points out that they would be destroyed before help arrived.
Down in the lab, and Petrie, for some reason, asks Elaan once again to wear this wedding necklace.
Yeah, as a token of respect and peace. And I think she states that men of other worlds can only think of duty and responsibility. As if it's a bad thing.
Well,
you should be responsible in doing your duties. Something to be...
Depends who's giving the orders.
Of course.
Back on the bridge, Kirk's plan is to stall for time, proceed on course, and hope the Klingons can be bluffed.
He then opens a hailing frequency, identifies himself, and states their mission is peaceful, but is going to take no nonsense from them.
The Klingon commander tells him to prepare to be boarded or destroyed, and Kirk posits that his strategy might have been flawed.
Again, quite like that. Kirk's not bad in this episode.
Yeah. Sulu now reports the Klingons are closing on an intercept course, and Kirk asks Scotty for partial phaser power.
But he is told there is no chance, as we see Elaan enter.
She's wearing her wedding dress now and the necklace.
Yeah, she tells him she wants to die with him. He lowers his head for a moment, but then tells her that they won't die and orders her off the bridge.
The Klingons fire on them, but the shields hold, and Kirk stands near Sulu, urging him to keep forward shields towards the Klingons.
Spock notes an odd energy reading as Sulu warns that they're being paralleled again, but the attack seems to have ended for the moment.
Spock then confirms that this reading is coming from Elaan, or more specifically from her necklace, and she gives them a bit of an explanation.
Well, she says it's a gift. It's made from common stones of little value.
Which amazes Spock and Kirk, who know what the stones actually are.
What are they?
It's dilithium crystals.
Yay!
This explains why the Klingons are so interested in the sector.
He then hands them to Spock and asks if he thinks Scotty could make some use of them.
Meanwhile, the Klingons come back around, but Sulu's able to protect their weakened shield sector, and we get the Klingons up on screen.
Yeah, I think Kirk at this point wants to ask what the surrender terms are.
Well, he's going to play for time whilst Spock's heading down to engineering with the crystals.
But the Klingon commander tells him simply, there are no terms. Your surrender must be unconditional and immediate.
He's channeling Ulysses S. Grant there. And Kirk asks Scotty at this point for an estimate. But Scotty wants to run a series of very thorough tests.
We're under attack. We're all about to die.
Health and safety.
Health and safety. So Kirk rightly instructs him to test it in combat, even though Spock apparently agreed with Scotty. What?
No, they don't want the blame. This is it. Rather than giving their best.
You can't get blame if it blows up. Then there's no blame to be.
Assigned. Anyhow, Kirk's not interested in their warnings. He contacts the Klingons and asks them to guarantee the safety of the dolmen from Elas.
But again, he's told, nope, just do what you're told.
Scotty at this point confirms the crystals are in place.
Just as the ship starts on another attack run,
Kirk orders Scotty and Spock up to the bridge, and Sulu is told to prepare for warp manoeuvres, while Chekhov is instructed to arm the photon torpedoes.
Yeah, he's got this plan, and there's another countdown to the conclusion.
Yes, Kirk doesn't power up the shields though. He's trying to keep this new availability of power secret as long as possible, and he lays out the plan to the others as Scotty and Spock return.
What's the plan?
Well, he's going to wait till they get really close and then blow them up.
Yep, that's what happens. They get really close, he fires, they hit, and I think they take out a shield, obliterate another one, and they cause the whole thing to lose the ability to manoeuvre.
Rather than finish them off, though, Chekhov is instructed to continue on course for Troyius, which is confusing to Elaan.
Yeah, she wants to know why he didn't jump in their head.
No one answers her. They resume the course to Troyius, and we next see them in the transporter room,
where they meet for a final time before she departs.
You will not beam down for the ceremony?
No.
I want you to have this as a personal memento. I have learned that on Troyius they do not wear such things. Remember me.
I have no choice.
Nor have I. I have only responsibilities and obligations. Bye.
Back to the bridge for the conclusion of this week's episode. A buoyant McCoy skips on, pleased with himself that he has found the antidote.
Spock suggests that it's no longer required because the Enterprise has cured Kirk, and McCoy asks if he's out of his Vulcan mind.
Yeah, what did he tell him?
There's no cure for the Enterprise, and Spock has to concur.
Yeah.
And Kirk orders warp 2. That's stupid.
Bit of a half-assed ending.
Yeah. Do you think Kirk would eventually just take the antidote?
Yeah, because he's still gagging for it.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to see her again.
Yeah, it's not Spock's place to intervene in that fight.
It's alright, he loves it. Yeah.
Were you happy with the resolution for Elaan's story? Do you think peace is going to follow?
Nah, she's a pain in the arse.
Yeah, and the other people don't seem very enamoured.
No. It'll be, I mean, if the first month or so will be fine, then it'll be chaos.
Do you think her feelings for Kirk were genuine? Or do you think she was manipulating?
That would appear to be so.
Yeah.
That's what I said earlier on. I would have thought that there would have been a reveal where it was obvious she was just using him, but no, that didn't happen. So we have to assume that the attraction of Captain Kirk was, well, we know that anyway. Women can't resist him, whether they want to or not.
Doesn't even have to cry on them. Do you think though his behaviour was indicative of love or something more obsessive?
Obsessive.
Yeah, so I think they described that slightly wrong.
Yeah, because before the tear, he was sort of laughing at her and ridiculing her and just telling her to get on with things. And
it was good though that he didn't completely succumb to whatever it was. He was still able to do his job effectively.
That biochemistry wasn't quite as powerful. Maybe it didn't affect humans as much as...
Yeah, maybe. I thought it was a strong Kirk episode.
It was. I didn't have many issues with him at all, apart from the threats of violence and actual violence.
Yeah, the actual violence. And ignoring her request to not touch her anymore.
Yeah.
Some trivia?
Go for it.
Originally aired on the 20th of December 1968, which means there was a 2-week gap either side of this one.
Mm-hmm.
So probably most folk missed it. It was both written and directed by John Meredith Lucas. It's the only episode where anyone both writes and directs. You can hear more about Lucas on the podcast we did for The Changeling back at the start of season 2.
John Meredith Lucas sounds like a serial killer from the 70s.
Yeah. France Noyen played Elaan. This was her only Star Trek role, but she was already a Golden Globe nominee for her work on South Pacific by the time she worked on the show.
I recognised her.
Yeah, she would go on to appear in series like Murder, She Wrote, Knots Landing and Columbo.
Yep.
Where she played opposite Louis Jordan in Murder Under Glass.
Fantastic episode, and I think there's a little bit more trivia you have, if I'm not mistaken.
She was also married to Columbo legend Robert Culp for a few years at the end of the 60s, making her a great Columbo connection.
That is a good one.
She's now 82 years old.
Still going strong as of recording.
Jay Robinson played Ambassador Petrie. This was his only Star Trek role, but he was also in series like Bewitched, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and Cheers. And he appeared in the 1992 film adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. He died in 2013 when he was 83. Tony Young played Crichton. This was his only appearance on the show, but he also appeared on series like Mission Impossible, Quantum Leap, and Starsky and Hutch. And from the mid-70s to the mid-80s, he was married to Columbo alum Sondra Curry. He died in 2002 when he was 64. Lee Duncan played Evans, one of the engineering officers. This was his only Star Trek role and his first on-screen credit, but he went on to appear in Ironside, Mission Impossible, and Boston Legal, amongst other things, and he's now 82. Victor Brandt played Watson. I might have got these mixed up. Watson was maybe the engineering guard that was killed, was he?
Don't know.
Anyway, this was the first of his 2 appearances on the show. He also appeared in Mission Impossible, Murder, She Wrote, and The Practice, and he remains active, mostly with voice work, including narrating the Mike Myers version of The Cat in the Hat, and he's now 78. Oh, Charlie Watts just died.
Really?
Yeah.
Just coming through?
Just coming through on the wire.
Oh, sad news that.
Yeah. They just put off their shows because he wasn't feeling well, but he said he was going to be better.
Oh, obviously mistaken. That's sad.
Yeah.
Legend.
Wasn't in Star Trek though.
No.
Kate L. Smith played the Klingon commander. This was his only Star Trek role, and he didn't make many on-screen appearances afterwards. He had previously shown up in Mannix, Bonanza, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and a number of westerns and western series. He died in 1981 when he was 58. Some other trivia: Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, arguably by Sirhan Sirhan, during the filming of this episode, which distressed Franz Noyen, who was a big supporter of his. Princess Vespa in Spaceballs is largely based on Elaan. This is the only episode in the series where McCoy actually says you're out of your Vulcan mind, but it's another one of those quotes that kind of got into the zeitgeist a little bit.
Really? I've not heard. Oh, didn't recognise it.
It's used again in the movies and in the new movies.
Ah, okay.
Only 2 characters in the entire series have more costume changes than Elaan, and we've seen them both. Can you remember who they were?
Nope.
Lenore Caridian in The Conscience of the King and Khan in Space Seed.
There you go.
There's a suggestion in the book Star Trek in History, Racing Towards a White Future, which Memory Alpha quotes extensively, suggesting this episode relies heavily on Asian tropes, and particularly Asian female tropes. For me, it's kind of one of those things that's there if you look for it.
Yeah.
That said, it's the 60s, and if you're someone who doesn't see people who look like you on TV very much, it might be frustrating if they always fit the same stereotypes when you do see them.
To be fair, I don't know what that stereotype is.
Well, you've got a few different ones. The way that she eats is meant to be sort of this uncouth Asian woman, and then there's the...
Is that what I didn't know that was a thing.
There's a few different ones. If you read the Memory Alpha article for this episode, it goes into a bit more detail.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have the background to really comment on it in any educated way. In terms of international titles, the only departure from a literal translation is actually in Germany, where the episode was titled Brautschiff Enterprise, which means Bridal Ship Enterprise. Many of the others actually translate directly to Elaan of Troy, which shows how similar this title is to that. Next week, 14th episode of Season 3, Whom Gods Destroy, as we come face to face with Garth of Izar. And in the meantime, you can find us all over social media. We're at Trek Podcast on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. You can find all the episodes on our YouTube channel once they pass the censors, and our website is astartrekpodcast.com, where you find a post for every episode, and you can comment and leave your thoughts there if you like.
And we shall see you next week.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.